Good day, reading scholars with Mrs. Helverson and Mr. Long. We are continuing our work today in the Blue Reading Mastery book with lesson 26. If you need to pause for a moment and get your book, in your packet for lesson 26, pause and take a moment to do that. Otherwise, we are ready to go. Lesson 26. Touching column 1. Word 1 is shallow. What word? Good. Shallow. Shallow is the opposite or antonym of deep. So the opposite of a deep bowl is a shallow bowl. What would be the opposite of deep water? Yes, shallow water. Word 2 rhymes with the word caring. It's the word tearing. What word? Yes, tearing. Word 3 is hind. What word? Hind, right? Like the dog hurt one of its hind legs, right? Meaning one of its back legs. Word 4 is practice. What word? Yes, right now we are practicing vocabulary words. Word 5 is bow. What word? Bow. Not bow like you take a bow, although that's spelled the same, but the bow of a ship is the front of the ship. So what do we call the front of the ship? Bow. Does anyone remember what we call the back of the ship? Right, the stern. Scholars, let's do column 1 the quick way. Back to the top. Here we go on my snap. Shallow, tearing, hind, practice, bow. 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 So the bow of the ship. Column 2. All of the words in column 2 have more than one syllable. So the first syllable is underlined, and we're going to put them together to make the whole word. So number 1, spy and glass make spyglass. Good. Word 2, sir and fis make yes, surface. Word 3, in and stent make correct, instant. Number 4, be and sides make yes, besides. And number 5, light and ning make yes, lightning. Good work. Let's do column 2 the quick way. Everyone ready? Here we go. When I touch my nose. Get ready. Spyglass, surface, instant, besides, lightning. Great job. Column 3. Pointing at the top. All the words in column 3 also have more than one syllable, and the first syllable is underlined. So scholars, word 1, that first syllable is L. What's that first syllable? Good. Now the whole word is elevator. What word? Correct, elevator. Word 2, just the first syllable? Right, 4. The whole word is 40. What word? Good, 40. Do you remember when 40 was a spelling word? I do. Word 3 is hang, handkerchief, handkerchief, handkerchief. That whole word is handkerchief. What word? Great. And word 4, that underlined part is per. The whole word is perhaps. What word? All right. Let's do column 3 the quick way. Here we go. Back to the top. When I pat my head. Ready? Elevator. 40. Handkerchief. Perhaps. Ooh, perhaps we'll do column 4 now. We will. Scholars, all the words in column 4 have endings on them. So we want to be careful and make sure we're reading those endings. Don't let them drop off. Point your finger ready? Here we go. Word 1. What word? Yes, bailing. Word 2. Right, roughed. Word 3. Yes, glassy. Every time I snap, Toby thinks I'm snapping at him. Word 4. Right, tiptoed. Word 5. Correct, pirates. And word 6 is sloshed. What word? Right, sloshed. All right, scholars, column 4, the quick way. When I touch my ear. Here we go. Bailing, roughed, glassy, tiptoed, pirates, sloshed. All right. Scholars, if you want to practice any of those, go ahead, press pause and read through those vocabulary words again. But if you're ready, we're going to move to part B. Part B of our story continues our story about Edna and Carla. Today's title, everyone, is The Lifeboat. What's the title? The Lifeboat. Oh, that's immediately reminding me where we left off. Right? One of them had wanted to use the lifeboat as their pretend ship. And the other one said, didn't seem to want to, but they looked around and noticed nobody was watching them, right? None of the crew. Do you remember who first wanted to do that? And then who didn't really want to? But it seemed like we left off with, we weren't sure what was going to happen, and you were all asked to think about it. Let's find out. The lifeboat. Carla and Edna were on the deck of Captain Parker's ship. Carla pretended to take out her spyglass and look around. "We're on an island," she said, "and there's our boat, pulled up on the beach." She pointed to the lifeboat. "I'm the captain, and you're my first mate. So when I give an order, you carry it out." So, scholars, hold your spot. Is Carla talking about real things or pretend things right now? Right, pretend things. They're just playing. In this pretend game, what is Carla's job? Yes, she's the captain. And what is Edna's job? Correct, first mate. So, which of them is giving the orders? Captain Carla or first mate Edna? Right, Captain Carla, because the captain gives the orders. So, Edna is going to follow the orders from Captain Carla. Let's continue. Point your finger or bookmark ready? Track with me. Edna pulled off her shoes and socks and rolled up her pants to the knees. She tied a handkerchief around her head. She felt like a sailor now. "Yes, sir, Captain, sir," she said as she stood up. The deck felt very hot on Edna's feet. So far, does it seem like Edna is playing along with Carla's game? It does, doesn't it? "Remember, we're on an island," Carla said. "We have to be very careful when we sneak into our boat. There are pirates on the island. Follow me." So, scholars, where are they pretending to be right now? On an island. They're really on the ship, remember? Carla crouched down and tiptoed across the deck to the lifeboat. She climbed in the front. Let me read that sentence again. She climbed in the front. Is everyone remembering the two places they're supposed to stay away from? The sides of the ship and the lifeboats? She climbed in the front. "The coast is clear," she said softly. "Ouch, ouch, ouch," Edna whispered as she tiptoed across the deck. Edna jumped into the lifeboat. It rocked from side to side. It was held in the air by ropes that were attached to the bow and to the stern. Everyone, touch Edna in the picture. What does she have around her head? Right, a handkerchief. Now touch Carla. And I want to make sure you see those ropes, so touch the rope attached to the bow of the lifeboat. Right? Are you touching the front of the lifeboat? Good. Now touch the rope at the stern, right, the back of the lifeboat. Now, what do you suppose would happen if you fooled around with those ropes? That's what I was thinking, right? That lifeboat could fall into the water. Let's continue. Tracking finger or bookmark. Edna knew that you did something with the ropes to lower the boat into the water, but she wasn't sure how to do it, and she didn't want to find out. For a moment, Edna had a bad feeling. They were doing something they shouldn't do, but then Edna explained things to herself. Do you ever have that happen when you explain something to yourself, right? Like you kind of think about, right, the pros and cons of doing something, the good or the bad. Kind of think about, well, I should do this. I kind of want to do this, but I shouldn't. So she's explaining this in her mind, right? She's thinking about it. There wasn't anything else to do, and none of the crew members would talk to them. And besides, they would be very careful. Right? So scholars, she's telling herself, right? She's explaining to herself why it would be okay to do what they're doing, even though they were not supposed to go in the lifeboat. Suddenly, the boat dropped. Carla must have grabbed one of the ropes at the front of the boat, or perhaps the rope just slipped. Edna didn't know. All she knew was that the boat was falling like a high-speed elevator. Imagine how that must have felt. And you can see how far it is in the picture, right? To drop from where they are into the water. The ropes were making a howling sound as they ran through the wheels that had been holding the lifeboat. Edna wanted to yell something, but her voice wouldn't work. The bow of the boat hit the water before the stern. Edna held onto the side of the boat as hard as she could, but when the boat hit the water, Edna went flying forward, bumping into Carla. A huge wave broke over the front of the lifeboat and sloshed around in the bottom of the boat. The boat bounced in the waves that the large ship was making. Another wave broke over the side of the boat. For an instant, Edna was amazed at how loud the waves were. From the deck, the ocean seemed almost silent. But now there were rushing sounds, splashing sounds, sloshing sounds. The waves from the stern of the big ship hit the lifeboat and almost turned it over. Carla tried to stand up. She was waving her arms and yelling. Edna yelled too. "Help! Stop! Here we are!" they yelled. Now, scholars, who would they be yelling to? Right, the people on the ship, the crew members, right, her dad. The girls waved their arms. They continued to wave as the large ship became smaller, smaller, smaller. Now, scholars, the ship's not actually getting smaller. What is the author telling us if the ship is getting smaller, smaller, smaller? Right, it's telling us that the ship is getting further and further away. Then the girls stopped waving and continued to watch the large ship. Now it was only a dot on the glassy water. So, is the ship on its way back to them? No. Right, if it's now only a dot, it's gotten pretty far away from them. Suddenly, as the girls watched the dot, a very cool breeze hit them from behind. The air suddenly had a different smell. The wind roughed up the surface of the water. Edna turned around and looked up. Behind the lifeboat was a great storm cloud. It rose up and up. "Oh, no," Edna said. Then her mind started to work fast. "Let's start bailing water out of this boat. We're in for a storm." No. Do you remember how that water got into the boat? Remember, when the boat came crashing down, right? The lifeboat came crashing down, right? A lot of water splashed in, came over the side, right, as they dropped in, and then the waves from the ship were making, right, that was making big waves. So when you bail water from the boat, right, you're scooping out water, you're throwing it out from inside the boat. So scholars, I'm going to have you read the rest of this to yourself, but I want you to find out some things for me. 3 things that I want you to look for. Read carefully. First, find out how big the waves got. Then find out how fast the wind was blowing. And third, find out why they stopped bailing. Press pause and read the rest of the story now, and then we'll check in on those 3 things. All right, now that you read, you found out the storm got worse, but let's check in on my 3 questions. First, how big did the waves get? Yes, over 20 feet high. That's as high as a 2-story building. So if you live in a 2-story house or you have one nearby that you could go out and look at and think the waves are as high as that 2-story building. Wow. And the second thing I asked you to find out, how fast was the wind moving? Did you say 40 miles per hour? That would be correct. And the third thing, why did they stop bailing water? That one might have been a little tricky. They had to stop bailing water because a big wind hit the boat and they had to stop bailing to hang on in the boat. I'm picturing myself in that boat, right? Wet, probably a little scared, right? Feeling afraid. You don't know what's going to happen. The ship is gone. The storm is happening, and a big gust of wind just hit your lifeboat. Scared is definitely what I'd be feeling. So, scholars, I want you to set your book aside and grab out your packet. Let's take a look at your packet now. So, scholars, we are now in our packet, right? Looking at the lesson 26 page in your packet. I'm already taking a look down here at our rubric, right? Remembering that part of the question is in my answer, that I've answered all the parts. We'll talk about this one in just a moment, 2 pieces of textual evidence. We'll get there in a moment. Of course, the connection, and that you capitalized and properly punctuated your work. So remember, this is the scoring guide, the rubric that your reading teacher is using to check your assignment. Number 1, why did Edna have a bad feeling when she and Carla first got into the lifeboat? So, if we're using words from the question, right? Edna had a bad feeling because, right? You're going to finish that. Notice my favorite word, because. And we used a lot of words from the question, right? Edna, bad feeling, right? Edna had a bad feeling because, and you're going to finish that. If you want to, you could pause right now and write the answer to that. Or you can keep going with me and then come back to finish that at the end. If you're writing it now, remember to press pause. Number 2, what are 2 things Edna explained to herself to make her bad feeling go away? Write direct quotes. Direct quotes are words right from the story. So scholars, you're actually going to copy it right out of the book. So to answer number 2, on page 130 it says, and it's a quote. So words right from the book. So whatever you write here, your reading teacher should be able to go into the book and go right to page 130 and see those exact words. Right? And then what was the second thing she explained to herself? Right? So she told herself 2 things to make her bad feeling go away. Right? What 2 things are they? Directly from the book. Copied right out of the book. That's what a direct quote is. It's not putting it in your own words. It's a direct quote. The exact words from the book. So look for 2 sentences, scholars, that tell you what she explained to herself. What did she decide in her head? If you want to do that right now, press pause. Otherwise, remember, go back to that at the end of the lesson. Then number 3, write about a time you did something you weren't supposed to do. Right? So, one time I blah, 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 blah. Right? You could write about a time you did something you weren't supposed to do. That's the connection. Right? So, number 3 is making a connection to yourself, right? Edna and Carla did something they weren't supposed to do. You're writing about a time you did something you weren't supposed to do. And then the 2 pieces of textual evidence question, that relates to number 2, right? These 2 quotes, right from the book. So scholars, you're going to finish those questions. When it's all finished, remember you want to submit a photo of your work to your reading teacher, and you want to make sure you read today's story aloud to someone. Build that fluency, continuing your great work as a reader. Thanks for joining me, scholars, and I'll see you tomorrow.